Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Like my coffee cup? It's fitting. Somebody turned the heater off last night. It's a little chilly in here. But, not that I'm going to blame that on teenagers, but I'm going to blame it on teenagers. So, we are going to continue on our, I don't know, what are you going to call it? Reading, adventure, study, something. What's in the Bible? Or what does the Bible say? Or is that really in the Bible? So we are going to take a look. Maybe I can fix my hat and you can actually see me. We are going to jump to 1 Corinthians 8 today. We are going to look at something that is often used to say something it doesn't actually say. So we're going to read it and we're going to see what it actually says. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. 1 Corinthians chapter 8. We're reading out of New King Yimmy today. So, pick your favorite version. They all say basically the same thing, but they don't say the same thing because translations are not all the same, and we will get into that and how they translated them and why they're translated different on another one. But essentially, it's pretty much the same. Some of them just try and make it easier to understand-ish. So, read along, if you will. 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Now concerning things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing, yet as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him. Therefore, concerning the eating of things offered to idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and there is no other God but one. For if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as there are many gods as many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father, of whom are all things. Someday I'll get better lighting in here, or I'll move the office, because hopefully we're moving soon. Yet for us there is one God, the Father of whom are all things, and we for him, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and through whom we live. However, there is not in everyone that knowledge. For some, with consciousness of the idol until now, eat it as a thing offered to an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. But food does not commend us to God, for neither if we eat we are better, nor if we do not eat are we worse. But beware lest someone has liberty of yours become a stumbling block to those who are weak. For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will not the conscience of him who is weak be emboldened to eat these things offered to idols? And because of your knowledge shall the weak brother perish, for whom Christ died? But when you thus sin against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, you sin against God. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never again eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. Now we're going to back up here just a little bit, and we're going to go over a few things. This, a lot of the time, is used to say, we can eat whatever we want, but don't make your brother stumble. So, we're going to back up a little bit and say, let's start at 8. What is actually being talked about here? Now, concerning things offered to idols. Now, in this time, there were many temples of other lower G gods, and they would sacrifice animals to those gods. So they would sacrifice it, and then the people would eat the meat from that afterwards. So, if somebody went to one of these temples and got meat or from animals that were sacrificed to the lower G gods, and then they eat it, they're eating special food that was sacrificed to these other gods. Now, if you, as a follower of Christ, eat that, why are you eating something that was sacrificed to another god? So here we're talking specifically about things sacrificed to other gods, as far as should you eat it, and what are the consequences of eating it. Now, one thing to note here is we're nowhere in here is it talking about what is or isn't food. We're not going back to Levitical something and debating on, well, this wasn't food, but now it is food. We're starting with a baseline of food sacrificed to gods. So we're not starting out with a baseline of, well, this wasn't considered food, but now it is food. Hello, Nadia. I'm doing a video and doing Bible study with people, and you look half asleep. You can't see them, you can only see me. Look, you can say good morning. Is it early? Are you half asleep still? Big hug. Love you. Mwah. I'm going to finish Bible study, and then I'll come downstairs with you guys, okay? Dakota's down there watching something.
Where's Mom?
Probably asleep. Sunday is the day she gets to sleep in. So she might be asleep. Anyway, close the door, please. Thank you.
Love you, Daddy.
Love you, Nadia. Mwah. Love you. Close the door when you're going out, please. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hashtag dad life. Anyway. Oy. All right, let's get back to something else here. Where were we? Nowhere in here are we addressing Levitical what is or isn't food. We are addressing what has been done with the food, and we're addressing that food, that is, if it has been sacrificed and presented to a false god, to an idol in a lower G god's temple, and then you eating it and other people seeing you eating it, and how do they react to that, and how is that going to affect them? So, let's see. Concerning things offered to idols. Or some... Yeah, buddy? Can I finish doing Bible study first? Hi. I love you.
Hi.
What do you need?
I'm still hungry and I don't like oranges.
Okay. Well, I'll be down in 5 minutes, okay? 5? 5 minutes? All right, high five. All right. I know you're watching yourself on the camera. Close the door. I'll be down in 5 minutes and help you, okay? All right, thank you.
I found a raccoon.
Okay. Did Nadia come down there with you? No. All right, she might be with Mom. All right, well, I've got 5 minutes, so let's get this wrapped up here. All right. So this is all about things... Hey! It's okay, leave it. Things sacrificed to God, or other translations, food sacrificed to God, or to other gods. But nowhere in here is it addressing what is food, was food, now has become food, and is okay to be food now. We're starting with a baseline understanding of what is and isn't food. Then we're taking that baseline understanding of what is and isn't food, and we're talking about what has been done with this baseline, this food. Has this been properly prepared? Has it been sacrificed to a false god, or has it not? Because a new believer that is coming from something else and not understanding says, if you were a follower of Yeshua, Jesus, his name was actually Yeshua, that hasn't been Romanized translated and then English translated. If you are a follower of Yeshua, why are you eating food that was sacrificed to another god? How does this stuff fit together? Now, in here, they're talking about having something been sacrificed to an idol. If it was sacrificed to a big hunk of wood or a big hunk of stone, does that defile it? Because it's not the food that you eat that defiles you. So here, with a stronger conscience and actually a better understanding, you know that if you go over to somebody's house and they're serving food and it was sacrificed to an idol, are you going to make a big deal out of it? Oh, I can't eat that because it was sacrificed to a hunk of stone. No, thank you. I can't do that. Or somebody seeing you eating it, well, look what he's doing. Oh, my. You should have seen what they did. This is more of what it's about. It's about the food, and it's about other people seeing and their understanding of what's actually going on. nothing in here is actually about what is or isn't food. So, my goal here is try and bring back a little context. A lot of things are... I'm shaking my table again. I need a better table. Anyway, a lot of things are taken out of context, and if you cherry pick verses out and use little bits and pieces, you can make it sound like the Bible's saying just about anything you want it to. But the reality is that's not what it's saying. And my goal here is to drive you guys back to what it actually says. Drive you closer and deeper into a relationship with God. The trendy, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. But is it really? Is it really a relationship with God? Do you actually have a relationship where you talk to God and you listen to God in this actual thing? Or is it a trendy tagline? That kind of stuff. I mean, it makes a world of difference. When you go from being a Saul to being a Paul, and going from knowing about God to knowing God, that's when stuff starts happening. That's when the reality kicks in. Saul spent his whole life... We're going to set this aside for a minute. I'm going to go on a tangent here. Saul, being a Pharisee, was raised... his whole life revolved about knowing about God and teaching about God. He knew about God more than probably a very large portion of Christians these days. Because Christ, the Christian Christ, is the same as the Jewish Christ. There is really no difference between the Christian Messiah and the Jewish Messiah and Jesus, and it's all the same thing. It's like, are you a Baptist? Are you Assembly's God, or are you a Lutheran and a Methodist, and what flavor and what version do you want? There's a lot of differences, but the essence of it is all the same if you actually get to the essence of it and don't get caught up in all the different parts of it. So Saul himself, he spent his whole life up until the point where he met God, knowing about God, teaching about God, trying to do everything he could to serve and honor God. And it was that point when God knocked him off his horse and knocked him on his butt, and he actually met God for the first time. And he said, "Lord, Lord, who are you?" That was the beginning of the change. And then he was led into town, and he stayed there for 3 days. And what do you think he was doing for 3 days after God knocked him on his butt and finally got his attention? He spent a little bit of time getting to know God. And he learned that he knew about God up until then. And at that point, he met God. And from there on, he took what he knew about God with the reality of who God is and actually knowing God, and he moved forward. And that's why he was able to do everything that he did, and all this stuff in the Bible and the records and his letters and everything, because he finally met God. My goal is to drive you guys to the point, back to the Bible, back to what it actually says. Don't trust what your friends told you and what your pastor told you and what somebody else told you and what you think. And that if you're willing to accept that what you believe and you're 100% sure of might not necessarily be 100% correct, if you haven't 100% learned it from the Bible and from God himself. Thank you. I will be now in 2 minutes. All right, thank you. 2 minutes now. Almost done. It's a little bit like a little fuzzy worm, but hey, whatever. It's a little yarn ribbony thing. Cool. Where were we? Drive you to the essence of what you're missing and why many people look at Christians as hypocrites and look at them as like, this means nothing. Because we are to be a set-apart people. If we look, sound, act just like everybody else in the world, how good are you at being a set-apart person? We are a people set apart for God. We should not be the same as everybody else. And if we are the same as everybody else, and yet we say we're set apart and different, and non-believers and non-Christians look at us and say, well, that just doesn't seem right. You seem a little bit like a hypocrite. The sad thing is they're right. How can we say we're set apart and we do different things? We act, look, sound, talk, everything different, but yet don't? how does that match up? It's because many, many Christians know about God, but have yet to meet God. And my goal here is to guide you on a path where you can make that transition. If you want to know the difference, if you want to make that transition from knowing about God to actually knowing God, that's my goal here. So, if you would like to join along for the ride, please do. I think now it's going to be an every Sunday thing for the moment. Sunday morning, Sunday evening, I don't know. My schedule is so crazy, but we'll try and get it narrowed in to a little window of time so you guys know when to expect. If you would like to join along or watch on the replay, go for it. If you have specific questions, send them on over. We'll address specific things, but we're kind of following along on a little bit of a theme right now, if you noticed, and we will continue to dig deeper. So, I will wrap it up for this morning, let you get on with your day, but as always, pray for the best, prepare for the worst, and remember, love is a verb.